Hello and welcome to this update from Union Solidarity International. My name is Walton Pantland, and with me is Andrew Brady. And it's been a long time since we've spoken to you, and that is because it has been a very busy season so far.
Starting a revolution isn't easy, Walton.
It's time-consuming stuff, but we realize that we have a responsibility to keep up our communication, so we apologize for being remiss at that. And let's give you some quick updates about some of the interesting things that have been happening. And I think what we want to talk about today is some interesting examples of how people have been building a movement using social media. And the important part about that is that it's not just been social media. You can't build a movement without feet on the ground and talking face to face and all that kind of thing, but you can really publicize and amplify your message if you use social media. And the example that I find really interesting and which has worked really well is the Fast Food Global Day of Action, which happened, I think, 3 weeks ago now. It was a day of action against 8 fast food companies, and it took place in 36 different countries. So it's companies like McDonald's, KFC, Domino's, Burger King, Taco Bell, and a number of others. And the essential unifying part of that campaign was against precarity among fast food workers. Now, it is quite difficult to have an international campaign because labor laws are different in different countries, and conditions are really, really different. McDonald's workers in Denmark earn the equivalent of $21 an hour. In the US, depending on the city, it's closer to $7.25. So there are massive disparities, but still the basic theme of precarity and low wages is typical across the industry. And what happened on that day, it was really, really inspiring, was that the protest started in New Zealand with a union called Unite Here outside McDonald's, and then as the time zones moved across the world, as workers in different countries woke up, we saw people appearing outside fast food restaurants in Indonesia, in Singapore, in Tokyo, in Hong Kong, in India, and then right across Europe through most European cities, in the UK, in Ireland, and then when it hit the US, in 150 different US cities. So it was really massive day of action. And what was really interesting about it was that Fast Food Global was the #1 trending topic on Twitter for a good number of hours that day. And that is I think that's the first time that a labor dispute has been the most talked about thing on social media. So that is interesting and significant. And what do you think, Andrew?
It is interesting and it's very significant, Walton. Always like to go by the motto, fail, try again, and fail better. But it actually didn't fail. It was such a marvellous day for how technology can be used to the labour movement's advantage. As you say, it's very difficult to find degrees of commonality sometimes because of the different terms and conditions, but what taps into people's consciousness, irrespective of the tier or the scale that they're on, is the basic principles of injustice, inhumanity, and people not being treated fairly. And those principles are universal. So the day of action, particularly on Fast Food Global, and I happened to be in Geneva that day meeting the global unions to talk about some of this work and how we can oxygenate domestic campaigns to be international campaigns and to make it relevant within their national context. It was such an inspiring day for us all because we don't need to fail better. It can work. And what we've got to be able to do is to work with like-minded organisations, whether they are in the labour movement or not, which has been USI's modus operandi, how we can unite on the common themes that we all believe in and amplify them across the world and pick our issue, whether it's in fast food workers' rights, the living wage, whether it's on issues of health and safety, equality, or fighting against racism. These are things that those of us in the labour movement and progressives can all unite on. And what we've got to do is to work together to make sure that we strategically coordinate our activities to give us the best chances of success for our message seeping into the public consciousness. And Fast Food Global is a marvellous example of that, and we've got to find the other examples, and there is many, which I just referred to. including the environment, human rights, a living wage for all, health and safety, the basic principles that underpin our movement, and we just need to fight and use these issues to unite people around the world, whether they are in a labour union or not.
One of the things that's really interesting and important about the Fast Food Global campaign is that although it was very visible on social media and it looked like a social media campaign, there were a lot of elements about it which were not. They were old school, old-fashioned union organising. And importantly, Unite here in New Zealand has been organising against McDonald's since I think about 2007. They've been around for a while. And over the past few years, there's been the rise of a low-paid workers movement in the US, which has been really, really significant. And they've been putting pressure on politicians and also employers, both in the fast food industry, but also at companies like Walmart. And it's been a lot of political pressure growing for decent terms and conditions and a raised minimum wage, a living wage. And it was really the coordination initially of these two campaigns and then linking them in with other fast food campaigns around the world, which is done in old-fashioned ways by contacting people who are working in different organizations and also coordinating it through the Global Union Federation, in this case the International Food Workers Union, is a really, really important component of it. It's only by getting all these campaigners talking to each other and agreeing to do something together that this action was successful. It's not something that just came out of the blue and appeared on social media. There was years and years of work that went behind it, and it's not over, but it is having an effect, and it's particularly having an effect in the US, where the minimum wage is becoming a genuine political issue, and there's a real difference being made. The federal minimum wage in the US is $7.25. Now states and cities can agree to raise that wage, and the fast food workers movement is being really, really ambitious. They're asking for a 100% increase. They want a $15 an hour minimum wage. There's been massive political debates about this in the US, but they have succeeded in Seattle, in getting the city of Seattle to agree to pay a minimum wage of $15 an hour. Now that's just not just city employees, but anyone employing in that city will need to pay that wage. It's going to be phased in over a number of years, and big employers will have to do it before small employers, but it is going to be the new minimum wage in Seattle. And Vermont and I believe New York have agreed to a $10 minimum wage, and there's a vote on the $15 minimum wage in San Francisco as well. So it really does show that if you fight, you can win, and a 100% wage increase for workers makes a huge difference. It is the difference between people being on the absolute breadline, working full-time and being in poverty, to actually being able to have enough money to take care of themselves and their families.
Yep, Walton, and you're absolutely correct, and we know a lot of people actually watch these YouTube updates, and believe it or not, and the point that Walton made is absolutely crystal clear. There is not a either-or scenario here. It's about how social media, online tools can be used as a complementary medium to on-the-ground organising. The two of them need to work in concert with one another. They are not different alternatives, they're part of the same solution. And what we've been trying to do at USI is to increase the usage of the element of social media campaigning to make sure that it is in the consciousness of trade unionists and progressives to be utilising these tools as a way to complement their on-the-ground activities, because we are never going to be able to achieve the change that we want without that strategic coordination at the ground level, but neither, incidentally, will we be able to achieve it without creating a public discourse which sees these things as positives for communities and for the economy. And that is where social media and online campaigning plays a very important role, because as we know, young people, many of them not in a labour union, utilise these social media streams by the minute, never mind by the hour, and we've got to be able to tap into their membranes online to be able to say this is an issue that you should be caring about, and the labour movement is one of the movements that are fighting for this, and use it as a way to promote ourselves as a force for positive change in society. So at USI, we really see as part of our raison d'etre is to be able to increase the usage of social media and online tools within the overall balance of organising, and you know, as I said, one can't survive without the other in today's world, and we need to get the right balance.
Absolutely. Once again, thank you for watching this belated update from Union Solidarity International. Be inspired, go out there, hit cyberspace and social media, and spread the Progressive Union message.